a panel discussion with questions from the audience. So first up, I'm going to invite Jason. Here he is, Jason Leek, who is the Managing Director of Business and Industry at Compass Group, UK and Ireland, who are the world's leading food service and support services company, have 400,000 employees in 50 countries. So Jason's going to outline for us, he's going to talk about how the workplace is changing and how sustainability, nutrition and well-being all fit into that. So please welcome onto stage Jason Leek.
What happened to my notes? I had some notes sitting here. Someone moved them. That's a good start, isn't it? What happened to the notes? Is that a joke from one of my Compass teams? It's got to be.
No, I think Jeremy.
Jeremy. That is. Do you know?
Can I just say I was going to recycle this?
I thought it had to be one of the Compass team.
If you want to Jeremy from the conference, press 1 now.
Our group CEO, when I had my first ever meeting with him, I was sat next to the group CFO, who in my previous job I reported to. And I was sort of sat opposite the CEO, had to do the first business review. And I had been preparing for this for a couple of days, and the CFO hid all of my papers just before I was due to get to my bit. So I know that's the second time in my career that's happened. Afternoon, everyone. I guess I get the death slot where there's no poetry, there's no interactive technology, and it's 15 minutes after lunch. So I will do my best to keep you interested and keep you entertained. I'm going to talk about health and well-being in the workplace, and in particular, I'm going to talk about the government's responsibility deal. Now, I'm not a chief futurist. I don't have such an exciting job title, but I would like to hazard a guess that in 2021 we will and people will still be eating. So we don't employ futurists, but I think one hopefully safe prediction is along those lines. I'm not going to do the sponsors advert and tell you all about Compass, because I know that's not what you're here for and what you want to hear. But then just a couple of brief words by way of sort of context to how they're relevant to this conversation. Compass, huge organisation, 15 billion of revenue in 50-odd countries. And the relevance for this is both a food service background and heritage, but increasingly moving into the FM and multi-service facilities space. In the UK alone, we've now got nearly £500 million of FM revenue out of just under 2 billion. So it's a significant part of our business. The other relevant thing is we operate in multiple sectors. And the relevance of that to today's conversation is I think we're in a really great place to be able to take the learnings from environments of our business where health and well-being has been a significant part of the agenda for longer than it has been in the workplace. So in schools, in hospitals, in the government sort of defence business. And there's lots of those learnings that we can take now into how the workplace is evolving. In the workplace, we operate under two key brands, US Services and Restaurant Associates. The majority of the FTSE 100 are our clients, if not in the UK, then somewhere around the world. And I hope that means that we understand the workplace and we understand what clients want to achieve in the workplace. But I think as important, and sort of more important to this, I mean, any of you that don't work for big corporations or where you don't have a responsibility for food services or facilities, you are all consumers. You are all eating in these sorts of environments, and therefore the sort of characteristics of the UK consumer, I'm sure, are things that you recognise about your own eating and buying behaviours. We do 100,000 plus surveys a year. We feed and we serve 3 million people a day in the UK. So we think we know a reasonable amount about what the consumers want. Now, just pick a couple of the sort of trends and then move specifically onto the well-being one. value for money is an obvious one. I mean, in the current economic climate, 60% of people think they'll be worse off next year. I suspect with the collapse of the Eurozone or whatever is going to happen there, that number's probably materially higher than it was when the survey was done. And health and well-being, you can read the rest for yourself. I'm not going to go through them. Health and well-being is becoming a significantly bigger issue. 35% of consumers made conscious decision to eat more healthily when eating outside of the home. And that number is actually increasing as people become more aware. But what do we see? We see that almost a quarter of working age people are technically obese. And this percentage, as you can see just from the shape of the graph, is growing. Not only is that relevant and of important issue for each of us as individuals, it's obviously important for companies. The illness and therefore the productivity issues that creates are significant, as are the healthcare costs that the illness related to obesity clearly causes. So against that background, it's probably not surprising 60% are looking for healthier options in their workplace. Obviously, the graph before shows they're not all choosing them, certainly not all the time. But there is a significant number of people who are increasingly looking for healthier options in their eating at work sort of environment. And let's assume for the moment, based on this morning, that we will continue to have some sort of eating at work environment for the foreseeable future, even if it looks and feels a bit different to today's version. And we're obviously, and the reason why lots of you are here, is a significant change in the working environment over the last several decades, not only in technology, but also just the degree to which companies either care or think they should care about their employees and the environment that they create. And staff restaurants, feeding environments, are obviously one key part of that. So it's against this background that the government has taken a new approach to health and well-being, but has come up with the responsibility deal. Some of you, how many of you know about it? Just to take a very quick show of hands, and how many know about it? So maybe about a third. So the responsibility deal is Andrew Lansley, Health Secretary's initiative, or at least fronting it from a government initiative, really to engage with business about a number of angles on health and well-being. And there are 5 networks. There's the food network, the alcohol network, physical activity, health at work, and behavioural change. And Compass Group, we're the only food service company sitting on the plenary group with other big companies like Tesco, McDonald's, and others, as well as a number of charities like Heart Foundation. So we're heavily involved with the initiative. And we've signed up to 2 key pledges. And the ones that are relevant particularly for us are the Food Network and the Health at Work Network. And why have we signed up to them? We signed up to them, frankly, because we feel it's the right thing to do. We feel it's the right thing to do for consumers, and it's the right direction as an organisation that feeds 3 million people a day, in which we feel our organisation should be going. Responsibility is a key corporate value, and we just feel it's the right thing to do. Not because government's trying to twist our arm to do it, but because from senior management down, we feel it's the right thing to do. And just to tell you a little bit more then about them, and obviously in 15 to 20 minutes, you can only really scratch the surface. The Food Network is all about eating outside of the workplace. Outside of the home, rather. So it's directly relevant to the workplace. It's directly relevant to restaurants and other environments too. And there are 3 key pledges: to reduce salt, to remove artificial trans fats. They're the bad ones that not good for your heart, but very good at killing you. And calorie labelling. And we, Compass, have had a decision to make about how big a commitment we felt we could or should make in relation to this. And what we've decided to do is we've committed to full GDA, so guideline daily amount labelling, in all of our relevant sites by 2012, by the end of 2012. And that's 1,500 locations. I'll talk a bit more about what that actually means. The Health at Work network is directly relevant to a number of, in fact, all of your organisations, particularly for larger organisations, where government is seeking to get buy-in and is currently building a significant number of companies that commit to this. And this is about supporting the workforce, so each of us, to lead healthier lives. It's got parts about occupational health, about management of chronic conditions and long-term sick. And then the ones on the right that you can see, it's about encouraging healthier workplace, restaurants and eating facilities. And you'll see some overlap with the food network, because again, this is about healthier recipes and lower salt and provision of calorie information. So the key question, certainly for us as food service providers, but for others out there who operate facilities and might be responsible facilities, is this key question, how big a deal is it then? And what's it actually going to mean? And let me just give you two scenarios. On the one hand, you've got Big Mac, you've got the McDonald's environment, where a Big Mac, not surprisingly, looks exactly the same whether you're in Dubai, Shanghai, or anywhere else. It's a highly templated environment where someone doesn't sit at the back thinking, shall I stick an extra few gherkins in that, and maybe an extra burger would be good because this chap looks hungry. You don't do that. It's a highly templated, controlled environment. But let me just ask you a different question. If you were preparing for a dinner party at home, and you or your partner, whoever might be responsible for these things, decided that you wanted to provide accurate nutritional labelling for all of your guests in 4 weeks' time, what would you have to think about and what would you have to do? And you're probably sitting there thinking, actually, I haven't the faintest idea. Or you might be sitting there thinking, well, I can think of one or two things. But let me just give you an example of the types of things that are relevant there. Firstly, you've got to follow a recipe. You can't just make it up as you go along thinking I make the best lasagna in the city and, I'm not going to follow a recipe. You have to follow a recipe. You'd need accurate information from your supermarket or your butcher or your supplier because they're providing the ingredients, so they would need to tell you exactly what was in the things you were buying. You'd need accurate measurement. You can't just chuck a bit of extra salt in here and a bit of extra sugar into this recipe there. And then you need a system that can do nutritional analysis. And then finally, portions is one portion has to look the same as another portion. You can't just give a friend double helping of chocolate sauce because you know they like your favourite chocolate sauce. And the food service industry is somewhere between the two. Parts of it are closer to the dinner party end. And parts of it are closer to the templated McDonald's example. But imagine the challenge if you're running a business where you have hundreds, as many companies do, or thousands, as a few of us do, of restaurants, and suddenly you're faced with that challenge. And that is exactly where we are at the moment. You might not be able to read this too easily from the back, but just to pick out one or two of the things, these are the areas that are involved for us as food service businesses. Firstly, we've invested significantly in a new online recipe tool. This is a multi-million-pound investment, an 18-month project. We've got more than 4,000 recipes already sitting in a central database, and that's not just writing them up, that's photographs, costings, and detailed descriptions. And then we have to obviously work with our suppliers about getting the right specifications. And there are some simple things we can do on the supply side. I mean, small example, but we've been working with our salt supplier on halving the amount of salt in a sachet. because the evidence and the research shows that most people just empty a sachet of salt. Some people will do 2, 3, or however many, but you can do some things that help towards reducing salt intake. So these are the types of things that we're having to think about. We've made the commitment in the workplace to have 900 sites by the end of next year, all operating this system. And there's a big cultural point here as well, because you might have a certain type of cultural environment in a McDonald's where it's, controlled, templated, and clearly following a set procedure. But in the food service industry, whether it's in restaurants, whether it's in our parts of the business, or in any other part, it's much more craft-based, it's much more skill-based, and moving to a more recipe and focused, if you like, process is quite a big cultural change. That doesn't mean lower quality, let's be clear. I mean, do you think Michel Roux running the Gavroche has his chefs come in and say, okay, chaps, you decide what we're going to put out today and you make it up as you go along? It's not about quality. The best Michelin star restaurants in this country follow a closed system and have accurate recipes and costings. So this is not about quality, but it is about behavior. And that's the challenge. One other thing that we're very conscious of is that in the workplace, it is not just about staff restaurants and about feeding people. It is about the whole end-to-end well-being part. And we've been working for a while on how we can integrate more closely the staff restaurant and the nutritional part with some of the fitness components. And we'll be announcing it tomorrow, a new partnership that we've just agreed with Nuffield Health, which is hugely exciting because Nuffield are the market leader, as many of you will know, in fitness centres and corporate well-being. So we've got a hugely exciting development that we've been working on together, really to integrate much more closely by way of an end-to-end well-being solution, the Compass Group and the Nuffield Health market leadership. So this for us is really exciting. It's something we will take to corporate clients over the coming months. It also involves a new and fantastic tool that Nuffield have created called the Food Calculator, which is a really great tool for testing and just assessing your own nutritional intake so that customers can take greater control of what they do. And David Brame, who's joined us and with us here today, he and I have been working on this for several months, best part of a year. I'm really excited about where this is going to go. And it's a hugely exciting development for us and hopefully for the industry. But I just want to leave you with the question, as I said, I'm not a futurist, but what does the future look like? And I think in this area, the key is this is not about some nanny state approach to saying to people, you're not going to be able to have fish and chips. We're going to make you have grilled fish and rice on a Friday. What it is, though, in similar way with technology, is it's about choice. But in the future, it's going to be far more about information and choice. We're going to provide people with much more information so they can make informed choices about what they're eating. So on a Friday, in the very near future, will it make you think twice when you look at these two options in a restaurant where you've got a steamed fish with rice, which is under 450, 500 calories, or you've got traditional fish and chips, which is best part of 1,000 calories and nearly all of your daily fat intake. And there's obviously no right answer. It's about, will it occasionally make us think differently? And we don't have a crystal ball, but I think with better information, people will be able to make informed choices about what they want to do. So that's all I'm going to cover. Thank you. Thanks for listening and look forward to any questions that you have.